So, I want to tell you today how meditating every single day for 3 months completely changed my business and my life. I'm going to start by telling you where I was in my life in case this is helpful for you. So, at the time, I was actually at the height of my business. I had just made 9.1 million that previous year. And in that same year, it was also the rock bottom of my marriage. And we ended up getting a divorce that year. And so, this was the beginning of the following year. I was living by myself for the first time ever in my life. So prior to that, I had either lived with my partner or roommates. So I was in this huge place in Brooklyn, 2 stories, and I'm by myself. I have a team, and I had created some distance between me and the team because I was going through my divorce, and I let them lead and let them run the business. And I found myself just grappling for who am I now post relationship. I also felt like I'd outgrown my business, and it was one of those weird places where you're like, but I created this business and I created this brand. How do I now lightweight hate it? Like, why do I resent it? And why do I feel like I no longer fit inside of it? And so what I realized is I needed to stop looking outside and go inside. So I turned to a few resources. Anytime I'm in a transition in life, I always start with my identity, the core identity that I want to embody. And at that time, the core identity was I went from 7-figure Danny, so she was able to make 1 million, and then she kept scaling, and then I was still working 60 to 70 hours a week. I was still micromanaging my team, I was stressed, I was skipping vacations, and so then I said, I need to move from 7-figure Danny to 10-hour work week Danny, who was still a multimillionaire. And so I worked with a coach, and over 3 months, I was able to reduce my work week to just 10 hours a week. And that was my biggest year when I made the 9 million. Now, the next identity was I just want to feel free and be fully expressed. So the next identity was all about self-expression. And it was the first identity where I was really tapping into, I guess, who I am and the essence of who I am. And I needed some guidance. So whenever I'm transitioning, I've got a new identity. The second thing I do is I create a curriculum around it. So I kind of asked myself, all right, if you were in charge of the curriculum for this season in your life, for this semester or this year in the school of life, what would that curriculum consist of? And so I'm going to share the things that I used to create my curriculum. It was 1 book, 1 skill, and 1 coach who I hired to help me. And because of this daily meditation, and whether you have a meditation practice that has kind of fallen off or you've been interested in it, I want to show you how it helped me multiply and transcend anything I'd ever been able to do and find internal peace as I navigated a change in my life. So the first book that I read was Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So in the book, he talks about how we have this habit of being ourself. We often get the advice, whether we're dating or we're creating content, and the advice is just be yourself. But what happens when being yourself is the root cause of your misery? And I realized that me being myself, what was really there was that I was addicted to a state of stress. So inside of Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, he talks about how your body stores the memory of the past. And when you feel familiar feelings, you start having the same thoughts that are saying, uh-oh, something's wrong. So for me, my familiar state, it wasn't comfortable, but it was familiar. My familiar state was a state of stress. So even when things were going well, because frankly, after my marriage ended, there was a sense of peace because we had been on the rocks for a little bit. So I did feel a sense of peace. I'm like, I can breathe, I'm free, I don't feel beholden to anyone else's expectations. Even with the business, I kind of created distance and I said, I'm not beholden to those expectations. But with that, I realized I would be in my beautiful place, napping, and all of a sudden, my heart would start palpitating and I would start feeling stressed. And then my thoughts would identify things that I should or could be stressed about. And I would create situations that weren't even a cause for worry. And then boom, within 5 minutes, I would not be able to sleep and not be able to nap and not be able to rest in peace. And what that meant is I wasn't able to imagine, the next phase. What I realized is that just like our bodies have the ability to store memory of the past, as soon as we start getting those thoughts about, for me, it was a feeling of in my gut. I would feel uneasy, I would feel bloated, and there were a couple things that were contributing to this. One was sometimes diet, and I might have just eaten the wrong thing and I felt bloated. But as soon as I felt bloated, I associated it with stress. Even if it was just because I had a croissant or I had some milk or something, that might have caused this bloating and this uneasy in my gut, but I would associate it with stress because when I was a little girl, whenever I was stressed, I would feel bloated, right? Because when we're stressed, it's inflammation. At the biological level, there's inflammation inside of our body, so you feel puffy. So every time I had that feeling, I thought I was stressed, even if there was no danger, no immediate danger. So instead, I started rewiring my thoughts. So when I noticed going into, oh yeah, there's this thing to be worried about and this thing, I would say, hold on, let's create a new memory of the future. Let's stay present in the moment and let's think about what we're creating next and all the things we can be grateful for. So with breaking the habit of being yourself, that helped me get into that practice of just rewiring my thoughts whenever I got a physical sensation that used to be paired with stress. Now, the skill that I learned was transcendental meditation. So I had someone who recommended it to me and I enrolled. So with Transcendental Meditation, you enroll in classes. So you need to be trained in it and it's like a 4-day class. And I went in person, I took the classes and you receive a mantra. And the mantra is a sound. It's not a word or anything, but it's just a group of sounds. And it's your mantra that they give you. And the practice of Transcendental Meditation is just you sit, or for me, I would sit. You just sit. And I would sit cross-legged and you just close your eyes for 20 minutes. I would do 2 rounds of 20 minutes. And all you do is you just, in your mind, repeat the mantra over and over. That's all. For 20 minutes straight, just repeat the mantra in your head over and over and over again. And the practice is that whenever you have other thoughts trying to come in and you're like, oh, I've got this meeting I need to prepare for. Oh my gosh, we didn't meet our goal. Oh my gosh, I need to respond to that email. You would just train your mind to go back. Just train your mind, go back to the mantra, go back to the mantra. So it just becomes this practice of returning. So it was almost like rewiring my brain to say, no, we don't need to worry about those things, bat them away. And it's training you to rewire and just be present. So I would do that every morning at 7 a.m. when I woke up, and then I would do it in the afternoons at 3 p.m. And I chose 3 p.m. because usually that's when I get my afternoon lull and I'm starting to feel a little bit tired, and the meditation would actually give me energy. Some people think the meditation makes you sleepy. For me, it would energize me because it was that practice of going back to the mantra. So what I noticed is when I started meditating, I felt a sense of calm and a sense of peace. When I went on my meetings with my team members, the things that used to get me wired up and stressed for the rest of the day no longer did. And I also noticed that in my meditations, I was able to create that memory of the future. I was able to think about possibilities that I hadn't been able to think about in that previous state of stress. So it helped me re-identify as who I truly was in my essence and let go of previous identities. Another book that helped me was 10% Happier by Dan Harris. This is a book that's written by a guy who was a newscaster. He worked on some of the biggest nighttime news shows. He was in these high stress environments. He was an overachiever, A+ student. So I really related to him. And he always thought, it's gonna be impossible for me to meditate. Are you kidding? I can't turn my brain off. I've got things to do. I've got deadlines. And on air, he had a panic attack and his body broke down. And so he started practicing meditation. So that for me helped with my misconceptions about, oh, I can't turn my brain off, or how am I supposed to just sit there? There's no way, no, it's possible. And it was helpful to just learn from someone who I identified with as overachiever. So that's another really helpful book. So I told you the book, I told you the skill. The third thing I did is I hired a coach. So at the time I was working with a fitness instructor. And what she did is we would meet 2 or 3 times a week. And what I loved about her is that she was intuitive, as opposed to saying, this is our stringent workout schedule. These are the workouts we must do. We're gonna do 10 reps of this for 60 seconds and then 15 reps of this. And then we're gonna increase it every week so that you can get those, those rock hard thighs and abs, It was about listening to me. So if I was on my cycle, if I had cramps, she would be aware of that because I would let her know, and she would modify our exercises that day. She would open with guided meditation to calm me in the beginning of some workouts because she would sense that I was a little like antsy that day. So when you're thinking about selecting a coach for your season, and if it's a fitness coaches aren't a one size fit all. I have hired other personal trainers. When I was in LA, I hired a male trainer, and I remember he was very much like, we are in the army, let's go, go, go. And I remember doing a set of reps, and I told him, I haven't worked out in months. Can you take it easy on me? And I remember we got to the end of this rep, and he was like, 5 more. And I was like, oh, and I did the 5 more. And then we would get to the next set, and he's like, 10 more. And I would push through and do it. Do you know I was sore for like a week? I could barely move. My body was tired. I wasn't able to work or think creatively, and I never went back to him. So what I realized is every coach is not created equal. Every coach is not for you. So finding someone who is supportive of me and intuitive and listening instead of coming in with their agenda and saying, by any means necessary, we're doing this agenda because I know it's best. No, we're not doing that. So in my season of listening to my own body and rewiring it, reading books that upheld that, and then working with a coach that further upheld that was like key. So what happened on account of me meditating and really tapping into meditation as a practice for 3 months? So for one, I entrusted my team to continue running the online course business, and we made millions that year. Number 2, I started my podcast. So I launched my podcast. It's called Since 3000, and I recorded the first season. My MO was I want to be fully self-expressed. And so the first thing I did is I worked with a stylist, and what I told her is I want my outside to match my inside. I feel like my style up until that point was very like bland and boring and like more corporate, and we keep it poised and together. And it was very much like I wore navy blue and gold, and I said I want my inside to match my outside. I feel like I'm, an eclectic person, creative, on another planet a lot of times, so I want that to be reflected in my style. So I worked with a stylist. Her name is Germany. She's amazing. And every month I would send her, here's my vision for the month. This is what I want to embody. Here's the mood board. And she would go and she would shop for different items. So putting that together for my podcast, I had 22 different looks, or maybe a little, maybe 15 looks, but we had a variety of looks. And so I got to dress up as my fully expressed self. I got to do hood rat-ish with my friends because I sat them right next to me on my couch in my living room, and we got to talk about their journey of embodying their past, present, and future selves, and how that led to building their businesses and their brands. So I got to have more philosophical and interpersonal conversations, and it wasn't just about, give me the 3 steps for how you made $1 million, give me the 5 steps for how you sold your business. But it was deeper because that's where I was at that time in my life. I also was able to, because I entrusted my team, we were able to pre-sell $125,000 worth of podcast sponsorships before even dropping the first episode. So in this season, because I was meditating, I was able to listen to my own voice more clearly and leave out the external voices that were saying, you can't do this way. It's always been done that way. So when it came to my podcast, I knew that we wanted sponsorship. And I had a friend introduce me to someone who handles sponsorships, and he works with ad networks. And I told him about my plan, and I said, we want to lock in sponsorship. He said, you need data first. In order to get any paid sponsors, you need to have your whole season done, or at least have 10,000 or more downloads, and then we can start talking. And I left that conversation like, okay, but luckily I had surrounded myself by a couple of visionaries on my team who I had entrusted, and they said, what if we try your audience? And I said, oh, they're like, you've helped a lot of people make a lot of money. They probably want to promote on your show and reach other people who are entrepreneurial, who are creators, who are experts, who are on your audience. And I said, okay. So we put together the sponsorship deck, and we were able to sell 25K packages, 10K packages, 5K packages, and they were all from individual entrepreneurs. One of them had a procrastination course. One of them has a program about taxes and accounting, and he has an accounting firm that's for entrepreneurs. And then we had a couple other sponsors that came in. And All we did was we sent an email to my list and we had them fill out a questionnaire, we had them apply, we did a call with them, walked them through the different packages, and as a result, they got to appear in the podcast episodes, and they also got to attend our podcast launch event. So I had shied away from events because I'm an introvert and it just seemed too complex and like too many things. But again, because I was in my season of allowing, we put on a podcast party, launch party in New York at the One Hotel at the Brooklyn Bridge. And it was gorgeous, it was amazing, and it was really fun. And I got to do like a sip and paint and meet people. And so I was just allowing things to flow. At this time, I also relaunched my website. I said, we are moving from the previous Danny, online course, Millionaire Maker Danny, to this more expansive brand. And when you're thinking about up-leveling your brand, what I encourage you to do is write your own movie, right? Create your own narrative. So what I did is when I was thinking about my website and the type of visuals and the type of styling, I said, all right, I know that I've been called by others a pioneer. And so I thought, I resonate with that. You know, I see myself as someone who sees a new opportunity, like a new planet. I go to the planet, I explore it, I figure out a blueprint on how to be successful by adapting to this planet and I create a blueprint, and then I go back home and I bring back the others and I say, here's the playbook, try it out yourself, and also invent stuff on top of it, make it even better. That's what I did with my course business, right? Helping people create their own frameworks based on their story. And so I saw myself as this pioneer. I'm also an Aquarius, and so I identify as being an alien and from another planet. So my vision was, on my new website, I want to tell the story of I am going to another planet, arriving in a spaceship. I am traveling in probably oversized, padded, outfits. I figure out the lay of the land, get the blueprint, and then I go back on the spaceship to Brooklyn. I have like a cute outfit where I'm going to the bodega with my girlfriends, getting some snacks, and then we cross the street and we go to a lounge and we dance all night, and then I load everyone up on the spaceship and we go back. And so I needed like an outfit that was going to be the welcoming outfit for everyone to the new domain, the new market, the new industry. And then I needed like a dress for the welcoming gala. So I made up this whole narrative and I recorded a Loom video. I created a Pinterest board and I sent it to my best friend, Crystal. Chris did it. She designed my website. I sent it to my stylist, Germany, and she put the looks together. We worked together on where we would shoot it. And then we worked with a photographer, Nick Onken, to shoot me in different parts of New York. So if you go to my website, you'll see it play out. We shot at the Vessel in Hudson Yards in New York, which I used to have a view of from my living room in my first place in New York in the high-rise apartment, but it looks like a spaceship. When you stand in front of a certain part of it, it looks like you are boarding the spaceship, or I'm welcoming you as you're arriving to the new planet. We shot it in the High Line, and we shot it in another futuristic place where it was like white, and it was really fun. And again, it was me tapping into who am I, and what it helped do is elevated my brand, and it created a bridge to who I was becoming instead of keeping me stuck in this box that I had created for myself. And now this was the time when NFTs and Web3 was growing in popularity. So I attended an NFT conference. I got to know the lay of the land, and I was in my state and my phase of possibility. And so I said, what if I created an NFT collection? I would love to design 3D clothing that is digital, that's oversized to represent how women are taking up more space in the conversation, rightfully so, after being kind of stifled for centuries. And I wanted it to look just really textured, asymmetrical, fun. So I designed all of that. I found a designer. I found a contract developer, did the whole thing, designed a small collection, and I ended up having French Montana collect one of my pieces, and Julianne Moore, who's an Academy Award winning actress, We actually redesigned gowns that she had worn on the red carpet and redesigned them for the digital kind of futuristic world. Because of her involvement, we were able to raise money for the Actors Fund. And this was post-COVID when actors had been out of work for a long time. So this charity enabled some support, financial support for actors. So this was one of the few creative projects that came out of this era of me really like tapping into who I was. So if you don't have a daily practice that is grounding you and having you feel more expansive and creative, or maybe just as a first step, just quieting all the noise that has been just getting under your skin and making you feel uneasy, I highly recommend that you ask yourself, who is this next identity I want to embody? And what is a curriculum I can create for myself to support it? What's a book I can read or listen to? What is a skill I can learn? And who's a coach who I can hire who's intuitive in listening and not just giving me the playbook? If I can support you in any way, I have VIP sessions where you can get my eyes on anything. You can have me help support you in your transition. If you are entering a new season where you're developing your brand as the next thing, as $1 million brand, as an elevated brand, as a more expansive, more creative, more business, whatever that is, if there's anything about my past that you think I would love to make that happen, then I'll include a link in the description box for you to schedule some one-on-one time with me, whether we do it virtually or if you come in person to Bali and we do a VIP weekend, I'll include that along with other resources. So I wish you all the best in this next season, and I will see you in my next video.